for everyone for calling in or logging in. A lot of it's our staff here, but we are recording this, so we'll be able to put it up on the PRPS website as soon as we process all the videos. Our lead today is Todd Roth, who you can see is at his swimming pool facility right now in this lovely end of March. And we're going to go through and do some basic introductions. I am PRPS training, but my name is Nikki and I'm the director of training. We're going to start, Todd, I'll let you go last, but Mike, if you want to go first, then we'll go to Doug, and then Dan and BK, who is not Tim Hurd, will go in that kind of order. So Mike, oh, and Doug, you don't have audio, so I'll just say it now. Doug Mouse is on the line, and then he will ask any questions or give any via chat so we can be his voice. So Mike, if you want to go ahead and reintroduce yourself now that we're recording, that would be great.
Sure. Mike Bonavita from B&R Pools and Swim Shop in Pittsburgh. We're primarily a commercial swimming pool service company, and we do the majority of the weekly state-required bacteriological testing for probably 90–95% facilities in Allegheny, Beaver, Butler, Westmoreland, and Washington counties.
Great. So a lot of the counties that are under stay-at-home right now are out that way, correct? Or a handful?
Correct.
Great. Right. Dan?
Dan Hendy, I'm the education manager here at PRPS.
BK?
Hi there, BK from Pennsylvania Park Maintenance Institute.
Awesome. And Todd, I'm going to let you take it over from here.
All right, so I'm Todd. I'm the aquatics supervisor at Center Region Parks and Rec and State College. So for this first roundtable, a lot of it, I do want to focus on the COVID stuff, procedures, maintenance, programming, stuff with lifeguarding. I do have a whole list of other topics to cover probably in future roundtables if we can get maybe a bigger crowd. I would like to go over a bunch of other aquatic updates industry-wide that are going on and kind of in the background right now. So, but to start with, for COVID, everybody's at a stay-at-home state for the most part right now. We're really limited on what we're able to do. And Mike, I don't know if you've heard at all. There are some parks maintenance supervisor was telling me that there are some stipulations about facility owners being able to get out to at least take care of their facilities or do facility maintenance. And I don't know if either BK or Mike, if you're able to weigh in on that.
I have spoken to the Allegheny County Health Department, and what they have, what we have worked on is to make sure that facilities, they're not allowed to use the pools, but they would prefer that they keep those pools circulating, or pools, outdoor pools. We haven't got that far right now. It's the concentration's been on the indoor pools. They don't want that water to sit stagnant and not chemically treated for long periods of time. They gave a few options. Option one was to keep the pool circulating. Option two was to shut everything off and cover it with a solid cover, even though it's indoors. That way they will prevent algae growth. Or three is to drain the pool completely. The problem with draining the pool that we have been telling our customers is that you've got to worry about groundwater seeping up through the hydrostatic relief valves.
Right.
And potentially, if they fail, the pool's popping out of the ground. And that's the big concern. We have had some conversations with summer pools, the big burrow pools that don't have covers. The thought process now, and again, we're early in it, but the thought process is they're going to at least have to drain, clean, and if they don't want to keep them empty, they're going to have to put water in and circulate them because we don't want to have other health issues with stagnant water.
Right. Mike, can you also talk a little bit, since you know more than I do probably, about if you're draining, that there could be a residual effect on the plaster of the pool? Because a lot of pool plaster is made to stay wet all the time.
That's correct. Plasters and liners. So your PVC liners and then your traditional liners, you do not want those to be empty. Plaster will dry out. Plaster will crack. You will have big problems with the surfaces if you don't keep them moist, which is another issue. And then liners, the potential is that groundwater will come up underneath the pool and the liners will float. So pools that have liners and pools that are plaster, the best practice is to fill it, circulate it. Obviously, you don't have to spend the money to heat it, and you don't necessarily even need to fill it up all the way, but you do want to be able to circulate that water.
Has anybody heard if there has been, Mike, you had mentioned about the stagnant water or outdoor pools. I mean, I know my pools right now, they don't look like this right now. They look pretty green. If there has been any indication, because that would mean not working from home. That would mean working at the facility to actively drain and clean the pool in order to be able to refill it and circulate it. Have you worked with has anybody worked with any owners that are looking at doing that or follow those procedures at all?
Yes, we have a handful of residential clients that we're actually starting to open pools now for. Pool folks, when you look at the federal guidelines, it's water treatment. So we are technically allowed to work. I'm only bringing in guys on emergency basis. We did some work at the Pittsburgh Zoo. We had to put a heater on. One of their heaters failed on a tropical fish aquarium, and that was pretty important that get back up and running. So we are allowed. We have gotten indication that we are allowed to work if necessary. No outdoor pools have yet contacted us about opening their pool or cleaning it yet. We're still a little early. We don't have to worry about it right now because it's still cool enough outside. The water's already black, but we don't have to worry about insects yet. Although if this continues another 30 days, I think you're going to see that people are going to mobilize and you're going to have to do something with your pool because it's going to be more of a health hazard to have a breeding ground for mosquitoes on some of these outdoor pools. Right.
Not only that, I think from a maintenance standpoint, I know my pools have a pretty good algae bloom in them right now. And I feel like the longer you wait, the more difficult it's going to be to clean out and the higher your maintenance costs are going to be if you have to wait a month or even 2 months before we can get in there and do anything. I think those two items might help make an argument to get this work done sooner rather than later.
I would suggest if you have plaster finishes, liners really not going to matter that much because liners, you drain them, you acid clean them, you get them back filled up within 48 hours, you're fine. Plaster pools, though, you make a very good point. The longer you wait and this bakes on the plaster, the more aggressive you're going to have to be and the longer it's going to take to clean these pools.
That's a good point. I'm making notes as we go. I'm having these issues with my administration as well right now. So I also, we've talked about maintenance. Obviously, everybody's programming is canceled right now. No swim lessons, no classes. One of the things that I know some pools are having issues with is lifeguards. There's a lot of facilities that if you can't run lifeguard classes, you're going to probably be delayed in getting your staff on board. We could, working from home, I am able to do our hiring procedures, getting a lot of the paperwork done to get them hired. But if they haven't even been trained yet or gone through the certification class, that may be an issue for some places. I did want to share that if you currently have certified lifeguards on your staff, Ellis & Associates has extended all lifeguard certifications through June 1st. And the American Red Cross, you can get an extension on your lifeguard certifications if you request it. So you do need to request that through the Red Cross. Obviously, if you're not able to do a recertification class or training classes to maintain that certification because of this COVID-19, that it is possible to push that back at least for 90 days so far, which is 3 months, which would cover a lot of people through part of the summer if they need to do that. Okay. Good. Does anybody else have any feedback or insight on COVID procedures, maintenance, programming, lifeguarding?
I would like to mention, similar on the training side of things, the National Swimming Pool Foundation, although that's not what they're called anymore, they merged, but nonetheless, the certified pool operator classes for those people in Allegheny County, you need that. They are working on doing a completely online course. So we have canceled the 2 classes that we had scheduled in March and in April, but we are looking into doing them online. So there'll be online training, and then they will actually, they're working on a process now to administer the test remotely as well.
Yeah, I did see Space Coast Pool School has already started a completely online CPO training class. I think they're out in the California area, but Mike, if you have something in the Pennsylvania area, it'd be really good at some point. Let us know. We can certainly share that out to our membership.
Yeah, we will. We're concentrating right now on the March class to move all those people to do an online, and that'll kind of be our beta test to see how well it goes, because they still don't know how they're going to administer the test. In other words, we've got to make sure the person taking the test is the person who signed up for the class. They can't have somebody cheating. So once that gets ironed out, so right now nobody knows. So if people are offering that class, it's a little premature because the foundation itself doesn't know how they're going to administer the test.
Right.
The online training is easy because that was already an option. It's the actual test that's going to be the issue.
Yeah, here at PRPS, we had to cancel our whole spring slate of swim pool classes. But we have been working with the Department of Ag to do the research class, and we're able to do that because it doesn't require a test. But we're still trying to figure out how you can do an online closed book test for the initial certification for pool operators. But we feel good that we're actually able to do a research class, and it's sort of like going to be our beta this spring and see how it goes.
That's good to know, Dan, because I'm sure there may be people whose pesticide credits are running out or expiring here. So if we're able to find a way to get everybody's pesticide credits up to date, again, the worry is that at some point the state of Pennsylvania is going to say, okay, go ahead, you can open your pools now. But well, at that point, if we're just starting our maintenance, starting hiring lifeguards and getting everybody's certifications that they need to get, it's going to take time. They're not going to be able to open the pools on day one. It might take time from there. So if we can get those pesticide credits to the people that need them at this time, at least I think that would be a good help. So that's good to hear. Yeah,
I think we're all doing it as it comes up, and I think they're the same way. I wouldn't be surprised if they start giving a little leadway for getting your recertifications, just because they don't know exactly how to work through all this also. So right. I wouldn't be surprised, but it's not, they haven't said it yet.
Well, right. One thing you've got to remember on the pesticide credits is everybody expires at the same time, which I believe is August 30th. It could be September 30th. So, those research classes, I know that we've been in contact with Janet Triggers because we actually do the pesticide class as well through the Department of Ag with Janet, who's on our side of the state with the Department of Ag. She's going to allow the CPO class to give the credits for category 24, but everybody expires at the end of the summer, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal for the summer pools anyway, because most of those people, if they already have them from a research standpoint, they don't expire until the end of August or September. Right. And even if they do expire, you still have a year to get your credits. You can expire. You're not allowed to use pesticides, but you can get your credits within 1 year of your expiration date and automatically be renewed.
So depending on how long this whole thing goes, we do have some options there to make sure everybody stays current. So, throughout the course of this conversation so far, we had 2 new people join us. So I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and where you're at. So Carl, if you want to go first, you're going to have to unmute yourself.
I was using the space bar. I guess my space bar doesn't work. Thanks. Yeah, sorry I'm late. I was actually at my office and just got back to my home office now. I'm in Lansdale. I have 2 outdoor pools, and I'm just trying to hear what's going on. My biggest concern is opening dates and that type of stuff, whether I need to open both pools or in swim teams, if we think that's going to happen, all that good stuff that starts up in Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah. Yep. Good. Thank you, Carl. And Scanif.
It's Sue.
Okay.
Hey, Todd.
How you doing, Sue?
All right. It's Sue Caniff from Mechanicsburg Parks and Rec. Sorry, I just got in here from being out at the barn pulling horses in real quick, so I apologize. That's my other job. So I guess like our questions are, and I think you guys were kind of answering them, like doing the online or on the phone interviews with lifeguarding. And I know we're in a boat where we're trying to get some lifeguards certified to work for us, but we do have a good number coming back. So I think in that sense, like to at least get the pool open and running, we're good that way, but it's trying to get these new guards taken care of.
Yeah. One of the posts that I saw this past week was that a lot of lifeguard authorities are, like pools are at least getting their hiring process taken care of, and they're hiring their staff with a parentheses or an asterisk that says pending completion of retraining or updated training. So at least you can get all the administrative stuff done. And then as soon as we're able to start gathering again, you bring all your guards in, you do all your training. At that point, the administrative stuff is already done, and then they can get started to work pretty much right away. So I'm hopeful that that model will be useful for all of us, because I know a lot of people, they would do their, like you said, you do your interviews and your training and all of that, and then you hire them after you've verified that they can pass the test or pass whatever procedures you have laid out for them. So kind of flipping that script a little bit. Good. Anything else about the COVID stuff? Again, procedures, maintenance, programming, lifeguarding, any other questions, comments, issues about any of that? All right, good. I have a whole page of topics for swimming pool stuff. First up, the American Heart Association in their CPR training starting this year is requiring mannequins to have some sort of a feedback device on them. If you're using American Heart Association for your CPR training, then you do need to have a mannequin that has a device, and there's a lot of different options out there for devices that are available. Now, the Red Cross does not require that yet. They may be adding that requirement in for CPR recertification, probably their next go around when they review and revise their course, which I believe will be in 2021 or 2022, they may start requiring that. The main thing for all of us to remember is that if we are purchasing new mannequins at some point, you should make sure that your mannequins have a feedback device. Some of them light up, some of them have an attachment to like an iPad or an iPhone so that you can monitor compression depth and things like that, rate of compressions on your mannequins. I will say they do sell little Annie converter kits that you can purchase. I don't think they're terribly expensive. I want to say $70 or $80. You can get converter kits for your little Annie. And you don't need to convert all of your mannequins. If you're doing a large class, you can still have most of the people in the class training on the non-feedback mannequins. You'll just need to have them use mannequins with feedback at some point throughout the course in order to get certified. At least that's the current thinking that I've seen for that. I don't know if anybody has any other feedback, questions, comments, but start to look for mannequins with feedback devices installed in them as you're looking at either purchasing or upgrading your current CPR mannequins. Any feedback or updates on that? All right, lifeguards. Speaking of finding and retaining lifeguards, just a couple of statistics for you that make you hopefully not feel as bad as I did, since it seems like we're having a constant lifeguard shortage. Just some trends in workforce participation. In 1978, 60% of teenagers had jobs. Again, in 1978, 60% of teenagers had jobs. Starting around the year 2000, that started to drop significantly. Right now, not right now, in 2015, that number was at 35% of teenagers that had jobs. That is almost that is almost a 50% reduction in the number of teenagers that are actually having jobs and working. So it's not just you know, us old people thinking, back in my day, kids worked and now they don't want to work anymore. The statistics are actually bearing that out, that the workforce of that age group is significantly diminishing. The next thing I want to share with you, people that are ages 18 to 34 are more likely to live with their parents than any other living situation. So more 18 to 34-year-olds are living with their parents, not in apartments, not on their own. Again, significant change from a decade or two ago. And then this last statistic blew my mind when I heard it. Between 1983 and 2014, there was a 47% decrease in 16-year-olds that get their driver's license. I don't know about you all, but when I was in school, getting my driver's license was like the ticket out, and everybody wanted to get it. But in the last 30 years, that has been declining. And the main reason seems to be the fact that now we all have these devices that we can socialize on. And so it used to be kids would get their driver's license so they could get out and hang out with their friends. A lot of teenagers now are not looking at cars as that vehicle to freedom, pun intended. They're looking at their phones as an ability to do that. So I think what that means for us, though, is that we need to continue to look at ways to entice that age group to come and work for us. And, you know, obviously, number one, being able to pay them more is the best way to do that, but not all of us have that flexibility and freedom to increase pay rates. I will say, you know, it looks like the Walmarts, the Targets, the box stores are able to pay $10, $50, $11 an hour to start. If you're working for a public pool, you need to be able to go to your elected officials and say, look, this is what our competition is. And those statistics that I listed, that can be part of your argument too. Hey, this is not just me being grumpy old pool supervisor here. The statistics are bearing out the fact that our workforce is diminishing. We need to make it more attractive. Pay rate's the number one easy way to do that. If you can't increase the pay rate, you do need to make the job more attractive. There's a lot of ways you can do that with incentives. And it can be incentives within your facility. Just things like offering a rewards program. And you can, you know, other pool supervisors are looking at, hey, if you have your own snack bar, you can give coupons or vouchers snack bar to you know, hey, I'm not going to go out and buy a $10 gift certificate from Starbucks, but I can give you something out of our snack bar at a significantly reduced price as a reward for extra work, extra behavior, things like that. Any of you guys have you guys used incentives or have ideas on how to get lifeguards, how to get them in the door? Anyone? Bueller?
I don't have lifeguard issues, but I feel you pain. You know, I hire 20 to 30 college kids every year for various jobs, and what we do is, if they refer somebody, we give them a one-time $50, $50 kick if they refer somebody that ends up working out. But you know, your statistics, I mean, I've seen that firsthand, because it's impossible getting college kids, and the ones that we do get, I actually have to ask them now if they have a driver's license. It blows my mind, but you know, having teenage daughters now, one just turned 16, she has no desire to get her license. I hear you.
Hey, Mike, a question for you, and this also for Sue and Carl and anyone else that hires people. Just a quick question. Are any of you doing drug testing, or what is your drug testing policy? And let's just go around the horn here, if you guys don't mind. Mike, start with you.
We don't do drug testing on our, we primarily, we want college kids, because I don't want somebody filing unemployment when they leave. So we don't do any, we do a rudimentary background check just to make sure none of them are sex offenders, or because we do a lot of work in high schools and places that, you know, we're going to be around kids. So we do a rudimentary background check, but we don't do drug testing.
Does that change if they're operating driving vehicles or operating machinery or anything?
It does not, but then we make sure that our summer help does not. In other words, what I do is I give one of my full-time year-round guys a set of hands so I can break up my crews in the summer. So none of them drive company trucks. If they're doing a route for me where they're picking up lab samples, they drive their own vehicles. So I'm not really and they're not on my insurance.
Okay, that makes sense. Carl, how about you? What do you guys do? Do you have a drug use testing policy or something like that?
Yeah, thanks. Not for our part-timers. For our full-timers, we do. When I was in Lower Providence, I've only been in Lansdale a year, we used to drug test every single part-time, no matter how long they were working for us, before they were allowed to start. So I've been on both ends of that. And then I'm actually fortunate. I actually have more lifeguards than I need. They've been spoiled. They work 5 and 6 hours a week and just never quit. And so I'm trying to do away with those kids, just make it easier for our managers. A lot of my lifeguards have been with me for about 10 years now as well.
We're all jealous. Sue, how about you? You might have to unmute yourself.
I'm trying. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that. I'm like, oh, it won't go off. Unfortunately, I do not know if there is a drug test for new employees through the borough, just because I'm through the school district. I do know that we have them do the clearances. So everybody that is hired, whether they're a clerk or a lifeguard, everybody has to go through having the clearances done.
I'll share mine here in a second. I'm typing these statistics in. Open your group chat if you want to see the statistics that I just mentioned. Hopefully you can all see those. We have a drug policy. I'm going to tell you guys a quick story. I had about this is about 5 years ago. I had a mom and dad who were divorced, and the daughter was working as a lifeguard for me. And there had obviously been some sort of bickering, fighting back and forth between mom and dad going on. So dad comes to me and says, my daughter has been smoking weed at her mom's house, and I have drug tested her, and it came up positive. So what are you going to do about it? Well, I said, well, okay. My commentary on your parenting skills, we'll just set that aside for the second. But talking through our administration with it, a number of really interesting points came up and came out of that. So number one is that I did not do the drug test for the girl. This is a drug test done by a parent who calls me on the phone and says this. So really, this is just somebody calling me on the phone to complain about something. Our drug policy is that we cannot legislate what our staff does in their free time. If I want to go home from my job at the end of the day and have a drink or do whatever I want to do, my work cannot legislate or impact that. Now, here's the trick. If I show up for work and I'm not able to perform my job, whether it's through alcohol or drug use or anything like that, at that point, I could be can be and will be drug tested. So my responsibility as a lifeguard supervisor, if one of my guard, we don't do drug testing before we hire, but if somebody shows up not able to do their job, at that point, we do take them immediately, and I take them to get drug tested. And then, depending on the results, then disciplinary action would happen. But if they're doing it at home on their own and it never impacts the workplace, I do not have the right to drug test or do anything with my employees until there's reasonable cause for me to do so. So just a little story, little interesting thing that came along. I did have to go back to Dad and say, hey, if they're using drugs on their own time, if it's not impacting the workplace, there's really nothing I can do about it. And Dad was not happy with that response. I will say 2 days later, I had a call from somebody who I suspect was Dad's new girlfriend that said, hey, I heard you're letting guards work who smoke marijuana. And I said, I don't ask whether, what they're doing. As long as they're showing up able to do their job, it's none of my business what they're doing in their spare time. So, but yeah, so hey, happy story there. All right, lifeguards. All right, next topic here. Is anybody offering critical incident stress protocols for staff that are involved in rescues? All right, so something that is increasingly available for ambulance crews, firefighters, and things like that. If they're involved in a significant rescue, there are protocols in place, and there are statewide agencies broken up into regions by county, I believe, for emergency personnel, first responders, to receive critical incident stress counseling following a significant event. For me, I wish this had been in place, or I had known about it a couple of years ago. I don't know about you guys. I've had lifeguards that have had significant trauma from performing CPR. So imagine a 16-year-old doing CPR for the first time on a 9-year-old girl and really struggling to come back to work after that. So if you're interested, contact your local fire department or ambulance crew. They should be able to put you in touch with your local critical incident stress response team. And really what you can do is you can put your lifeguards into contact with somebody who's trained to handle those situations. If you have questions on that, feel free to email me privately here. I'll put my email address in here. I can at least...
Todd, while you're doing that, I can also add that we had an incident, not pool related, but an incident that didn't end well, and the school counselor, even in the summer, getting in touch with the school counselor is a very good idea, because they came right out and really were very helpful in helping the kids get through that incident. So that's another option.
I appreciate that, Dan. Yeah, we had one incident about 2 years ago in 2018, and the two lifeguards that were involved, both of them struggled to come back to work. One of them that finished the summer and then never worked again. The other one's still with me. Back in 2013, we had another incident. The one 2 years ago was a 9-year-old girl. This one in 2013 was an 80-year-old man that we did CPR on, used the AEDs. And we did end up saving his life, but again, very stressful for those guards. And the 3 staff that were involved in that, again, really struggled to come back to work after going through that. And I wish I had known about the ability to provide that service for our staff. And I think I'd recommend everybody to look into that critical incident stress service for their guards. Speaking of good things to do for guards and trying to make your jobs more attractive, do you guys do reimbursements for lifeguarding classes? Here at Center Region Parks and Rec, if you take our lifeguarding class and then come and work with us and stay for the whole year, we will reimburse 50% of your course fee at the end of the summer if you request it. Is anybody else doing anything like that?
Hey, Todd, what I do is more on the background checks. If they stay the entire summer, I have them pay for their background checks in advance. If they stay through the entire summer and we're a good employee, then they get that reimbursed.
Good. Thank you, Carl. Sue, how about you? What do you guys do?
We do the same with the background checks. They'll get everything back that they put in if they stay the entire season.
Good.
Todd, before I worked with you and I managed pools, we did a reimbursement for the class, but they had to stay the entire summer. They couldn't leave early at all.
Okay.
That helped us keep our pools open for the full season because, as you know, the full season was always difficult. So as long as they stayed till that last day, they got reimbursed for their class.
Right. Mike, what about you? Did any of your seasonal staff get certified in anything? And do you provide any of that for any of them?
We do. We don't charge them though. We're at the advantage that we actually give we hold CPO classes. So we get them their CPO training. We do not charge to do the background checks. That's and to us, it's just a cost of employment.
Okay. Good. All right, I'm going to call this our last topic for today. I have a bunch of other stuff we can cover at a future meeting, but last topic for today, just to cover some legal issues surrounding some lawsuits around the country for swimming pools. One is that you can look at contributory negligence as a partial defense if you are sued, if the victim of your facility was partially to blame for the incident. The 2 stories I'll give for this, one was State Park in North Carolina. A guy got drunk, ran out to the end of the dock. There were no signs posted, dove into a lake, right into like 1.5 feet of water, was paralyzed, sued the state park system. When they came back with a verdict, they found that the drunk guy was partially legally responsible for his actions. And so it was a significantly reduced lawsuit. Now, the state park could have had signs. They could have made the situation better for themselves by having good signage at the pool and things like that. But contributory negligence was a factor in that the victims have a responsibility or a duty to themselves to safely participate in that activity. The other one was a lawsuit by a baseball player, and I want to say, I think it was Clemson, but it was a Southern school. He was standing in the on-deck circle warming up, and a foul ball came, struck him in the head, and he sued the school to say, hey, I should have been better protected while I was standing on the baseball field in the warm-up circle. And again, the verdict came back. They actually came back for the school and said, hey, you are a college level baseball player. You should understand as soon as you step on the field that there are inherent risks of playing baseball, and they did not award him any money. So again, hopefully we never have to go through anything like that, but it differs state to state and region to region, that you might want to check with your legal counsel to see if contributory negligence would play a role in any lawsuit that might be filed against your facility. Any comments on that from anyone, or has anybody else heard anything about contributory negligence? The other story I did want to bring up is, again, talking to your legal counsel, your risk management team for wherever you're at, is finding out how and when you can get sued really is a way of kind of proactively thinking about your facility. So the example I'll give, and this was at a pool out west where the pool had a patron collapse. It was an older patron collapsed in the locker room. The lifeguards went in, they did CPR, but they did not do it correctly. There were some issues with how, everybody, when they did interviews, the police came in and did interviews with everybody after the ambulance came. All the stories didn't add up correctly. And the family of the victim came back and sued the facility and said, hey, we don't think you did CPR correctly. These stories are not adding up. And the case was thrown out of court because the lifeguards did not make a pool rescue. And the lawsuit was found that because the rescue did not happen as a result of the lifeguards around the swimming pool, it was in the locker room, that they were not liable for the care that they provided there. They were protected under the Good Samaritan law in that case. Even though they were on the payroll, currently being paid for lifeguarding, it was not a pool rescue, so case was not allowed. So again, I just bring that up in your training to focus your training efforts, not that you wouldn't respond to a patron in the locker room, but to focus your training efforts on the areas around your pool where you are most liable for that. Good. Any questions, issues, comments about legal stuff? I know that's a lot less fun than the other stuff we were talking about. All right, good. So the idea, talking to the PRPS staff, the idea is we were going to hopefully try to do roundtables about every 2 weeks. Nikki and Dan, I do have a list of topics maybe prior to the next roundtable. If you want, I can send those to you. We can actually post them with the press release or the PRPS scoop thing to put in the topics that we will talk about. And hopefully we'll see everybody then when we get there.
That would be great. Thank you, Todd, and thank you for who could join us. We do have this recorded, so if you missed any of it, like the beginning part, hopefully by the end of the week we'll have it up on the webpage. We have a space specific for laughing at Todd and his Brady Bunch.
Yeah, just my last thing for those of you that are participating in a lot of Zoom meetings, play around with your background a little bit. So I figured since we're all Brady Bunching in our Zoom meetings, put a Brady Bunch background in and see where you fit in with it. So
someone said I had angry alpacas chasing me from behind the other day. Like, they're not angry, they're just confused. We have a virtual roundtable page on the website. It will have all upcoming dates and topics. So I'll work with Todd about scheduling another aquatics one. We do have one for this Friday, which is programs and events. It will be at 11:15, not 11. So check that webpage. It will be on the scoop. And thank you so much. If you have any questions, Todd's email address is at the bottom of the chat box. And thanks for participating, and stay healthy, everyone.